welcome back, everybody, to the Insightful podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Tim. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yep, feeling grateful. A little sleepy, but present. And glad to be having this conversation with you today.
Thank you. So I just like jumping straight into it. So my first question is, could you like introduce yourself to the audience and explain who you are and what you kind of do?
Yeah. I'm a father. I live out in the woods with my family, and over the past 15 years, I've been pretty obsessed with physicality, and going all the way back to my first teacher. I lived on a meditation retreat for 6 years in the mountains in Colorado, and that was my first kind of initiation into physical culture. My meditation teacher was very physical, loved martial arts, and had a very dynamic movement practice that was integrated into our spiritual practice as a means for creating clarity to support our internal cultivation practice, our sitting practice. And so I fell in love with it there. And just over the years, just trying to dive as deep as I can into what shaped the human animal, and how are we supposed to be on this planet. And it led me down many paths, and ultimately to realizing that like we were shaped, the functionality of our bodies and how we move. Every animal has a unique kind of signature on how they move. Horses move uniquely, chimpanzees move uniquely, canines, we do. And so it brought me to the understanding that the relationships we've had with the natural landscape are what shaped how we move. And so, you reverse engineer from there on how we might want to train our bodies in light of being removed from our habitat. Because even though we've been removed from the natural landscape, and in large part the relationships that have sustained us and shaped how we are on this planet, our biology still craves it. And so and it's just led me on a path to wanting to move closer and closer to nature. And as I do that, I find more peace, deeper fulfillment, and a greater sense of belonging on this planet. And so I think that's my main motive, is to move people towards nature. But I guess I'm a movement guy online. I coach people, so I employ these principles that I've gathered from many different schools of movement, to help people get out of pain and get strong and cultivate a resilient body and mind so that they can, show up in their world in a good way.
For sure. So I kind of want to circle back a bit. So you mentioned how you lived in the mountains for 6 years. What was the moment that made you realize you wanted to do that in the first place?
Yeah, well, I guess we go back a little further. I came from a very disenchanted, nihilistic teenage years of substance abuse and violence and hardcore music. And, I watched many of my friends die. Many of my friends commit suicide. People ended up in jail. I was fortunate enough to skirt around all of that stuff, and I met who's still one of my best friends today. We were working at a restaurant together in Southern California, and it was a vegan restaurant because I was like a militant anarchist vegan animal rights hardcore guy, and he wasn't eating the food at the restaurant. This guy, Eddie, he was Eddie now. We call him Prema now, or he was Eddie then. We call him Prema now, and he was also not so quick to dive into these crazy polarized conversations that everybody was debating and having, being a bunch of young, young idealistic vegans in a restaurant, like arguing with each other. So he was just, there was something about his energy and his presence and his like his ability to not enter into the polarity. He wasn't eating the food, which I thought was really trippy. And he was like only eating bee pollen. He was like living on bee pollen at the restaurant, and I was just like, "What is this guy up to, man?" And I ended up just finding him really interesting, and I ended up spending a lot of time with him, and we became really close friends. And he introduced me to, and granted, I was super toxic and unhealthy at this time. Like I
I
had
see.
really bad drinking problem. Um, I smoked cigarettes, like a lot of cigarettes. Very just negative in general, violent tendencies, and he just showed me a completely different way of being. And he introduced me to fasting, sleeping on the earth, psychedelics. He introduced me to breath work and meditation. He just kind of like kicked the door down for me to enter into a whole other. I guess you could say it was like kind of on the new age side of stuff in the very beginning. And so he ended up becoming a really good friend of mine. And I did like a 180 overnight. I was just like, I'm done. I'm done destroying myself. And I fell in love with internal cultivation practice, meditation practice. And it just led me to so just like I fell in love with physical culture, same thing happened with consciousness and meditation. Everything I could find on that I loved, and I was just exploring all the different schools of practice, all the different traditions. And it just eventually led me to who would end up being my teacher. And I think the moment I realized I wanted to go out there and be with them, I think I was on their website and they were talking about, I was on their blog or something. They were just talking about their principles of living, and they were wanting to create like an intentional community of practitioners who are living off the land and this and that. And I was like, I want to do that. Um, and so that led me to actually going out there, and then I ended up, yeah, being out there for 6 years, and learning to ride horses was a big part of our practice. And that was where I got into servicing horses, trimming their hooves, and which I still do to this day. And yeah,
So you left there, and what was like, I guess, your biggest takeaways? And did you realize that you kind of wanted to live like that the rest of your life, like live off the land and be more at peace and not like in a big city?
yeah. I mean, I had been, um, yeah. I mean, what was cool, what I loved about my teachers was it wasn't a like deeply monastic um, like tradition. It wasn't tied to any actual tradition. It was a synthesis of all these different schools of practice, which is what kind of I think informed my approach to movement. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was for the love of practice. It was the love of consciousness. It wasn't tied to any dharma, any strict set of rules. It was, we called it the school of embrace, not the school of escape. Because there's so many spiritual traditions that are like they find the body as a prison and they're trying to escape it into higher realms of awareness and all this and that. And we were like, no, this is actually heaven on earth if we can actually just embody this deep transcendent quality that is consciousness into this terrestrial world. We can show up in the world and be this full spectrum, actualize ourselves in a real way with our feet on the ground. Um, and so yeah, I mean, it was the the initiation I got into that way of seeing the world and orienting myself in my practice 100% just translates into going out into the world. My teacher was a computer coder. He would work 70 hours a week on the computer, but he was also like
Wow.
I mean, he's still to this day the most dynamic man I've ever met in my whole life. He's a complete anomaly. And so he was completely immersed in the world, but also completely transcended from it in this incredible way. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's led me to, my practice has remained. It's taken different forms and shapes. It's like he told me. He's like, you're gonna have kids one day for sure. I can tell. And your practice is, enjoy your practice here on retreat right now because it's not going to be like this forever.
Yeah.
And And I hope I didn't take that too much for granted, but it's true. It's like then when you have your kids and you're keeping babies alive and you have to focus on all these different things. It's like your practice isn't gone, but it takes shape in a new way. And
Hmm.
practice for me is always it's always been about relationship with the self and with the more than human world and all that sustains us. So it's my practice is beautiful. Right now it's just raising a bunch of tender hearted savages in the woods, and we're doing a different thing. And my sitting practice is coming back actually as my kids get older and I've got more space and I'm not losing sleep and stuff like this. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to live in a way that made sense. I've always been totally confused growing up by how insane the world seems, like the
mm,
systems, the injustice. Um, there's just no rhyme or reason. It just seems like there's so much suffering. And so I've always been like, well, what is the real deal that's going on here? Um, and that's ultimately led me to realizing that we more or less are animals in captivity. And we've been removed from the environment that sustains us and gives us a sense of belonging on this planet. We've augmented our reality with technology that moves us further and further away from that just hands-on direct interface with the more than human world. And I think as a species, we're suffering because of it. And so I'm here to shout that from the top of the mountain, more or less.
for sure. So I want to ask you, like, since you're speaking about suffering, and obviously there's a lot of suffering in the world that we can't control, like we don't have control over. But do you think like there is a lot of suffering that people inflict on themselves that they just don't realize?
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, and it's I think it's mostly ignorance, like we've been handed this this is our deck of cards we were given. We were born into a system that's, you know, hyper emphasizes productivity and power and the acquisition of material goods. And
Hmm.
we know we know from data, we're not like we needed it, but we know that it's an dead end road for happiness and fulfillment. The acquisition of stuff. It's like the sickest people on this planet are the most wealthy. It's like it's not a it's not doesn't it doesn't all go like this together. Happiness and fulfillment and contentment with the more that you can acquire.
Yeah,
Um, and so and this the most beautiful, simplest, at ease, content people I've ever met on this planet. And some of them are my best friends, are people with the most few possessions who live really simply and close to the rhythms of nature. It's because we've been sold the lie that we have to fulfill our purpose. We have to like build our legacy. This whole thing around like everyone's fighting to build their legacy. It's like, no, you're actually not that special. You're actually just a tiny little piece in a grand orchestrated unified organism, which is this planet. But we think we're beyond the more than human world, and we think that we're this or that, and the whole time we destroy the landscape that sustains us, and we don't think about the future. We don't think about our future generations. Um, and so people are causing all sorts of problems for themselves, but it's a trap because all these technologies are so addictive, so
yeah,
like how many people are probably addicted to pornography and hate that they're addicted to pornography and want to stop, but they're like, it's such an addictive technology that it's just capturing the minds of people, just as one example. Or like there's no way to like engage outside of your work world that brings contentment and connection with your community, and you don't know what to do with yourself because you're bastardized and don't have a culture. You're not born into any intact tradition, and so you just drink. You just go out and you just like you find a way, and like all the avenues for um or not all of them, but many of the most popular avenues for connection and entertainment just breed more disconnection
yeah,
and destruction. And then it's this endless cycle. And I just don't think that people have the tools, or the understanding of like, I mean, that's why you see now it's like just people will pay just to go camping. just because it's something as novel as just sleeping outside, which is what the human animal has done forever up until the past 5,000 years or something. It's like, it's so valuable. So valuable. Like, you watch, I guarantee you at some point over the next 10 years, there's going to be human walkers. They walk humans because humans, like a dog.
Oh my
It's going to be a
God.
service because they're going to be like on their VR headsets and they're going to be so unwell, but they're going to know, their chat lord GPT is going to tell them that they need to do some exercise. So they're going to call me. I'm going to come and I'm going to bring them outside and be like, come on outside.
Yeah. It's going to be like one of the most high paying jobs in the future.
Yeah, human walkers.
Human walkers. No, it's funny you say that because I live in like a city, and this year was the first year I actually went camping, and I only went for like 2 nights, but I like felt so good coming back from it because I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about I need to do this, I need to do that. It was a complete disconnect from the world and you just feel so refreshed. And that was 2 nights. I can't imagine if I did something like that for a month how I would feel. I probably wouldn't want to leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't. You probably
Yeah.
shouldn't. You can take your podcast to the woods.
Yeah, exactly. Take the laptop, the mic, everything. My next question for you is how has your, I guess, training philosophy like transferred into other areas of your life? Like the thought of being dynamic and being flexible, has it helped you in like other areas of your life as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that from my experience, if you're cultivating strength in general, and I don't even think necessarily that it's like my approach is super special in this regard, but like if you are just cultivating strength, you're coming up against your thresholds of limitation, you're growing beyond them. Um, you're seeing real time changes to how your body looks and feels and moves through the landscape. That translates into some good energy. You know, like
Yeah.
people who train, they're cultivating energy. They're exerting and pushing their tissues. Um, you get stronger. Like, it builds confidence. There's no doubt about it. It's going to support a resilient mindset. I think it translates. The resilient body definitely supports a resilient mind. And
Mhm.
that's important. And then, but like the styles of training, I think are important too, because it's like different foods have different effects, different movements have different effects, like getting underneath a heavy sandbag and breathing for 20 minutes has a very different that's a training practice. Has a very different effect than getting up at 4 a.m. and doing burpees, doing a
Yeah.
Navy SEAL workout.
Yeah.
They're a different stimulus. They cultivate different things. And if it's not the right medicine, so to speak, for someone, then it could have a negative effect. It's like a mom who is sleep deprived, is just getting her body back, has all sorts of postural and structural issues, just weak in general. Like, I'm not going to prescribe her a 4 a.m. Navy SEAL burpee workout. I'm more
Yeah.
likely to actually get her underneath a sandbag so that she can learn to breathe proper, distribute pressure through her torso, support her spine from the inside, down regulate her nervous system so that she has more capacity to handle more of the inputs from her world. And so I think that how you train definitely has an effect on different things. And it's not all training is equal. I do think that any training is good, but I think having a holistic movement practice that has all these different elements that really round out who you are. Because like I said, like each input from your physical practice is going to, it's going to teach you to create tension, or it's going to teach you to soften,
Mm.
so like there's different qualities. It's not just about putting on tissue. It's not just about, moving heavy weight. It's like we want to for me, I want to cultivate certain qualities. I want to be able to be soft. I want to be able to be receptive. I want to be strong. I want to be able to be quick. I want to be able to fight. I want to have all these different things that round out what I think is my best attempt at being a balanced man in the world. And so training translates and training, like our bodies and us accessing our bodies through movement practice, is like the lowest hanging fruit, right? It's
Yeah,
free. It's free. I can get up and do push-ups right now. I can get up and do a horse stance. I can get on the ground and crawl around. um, it's right there. And we know that physical training is most likely the single greatest lever we can pull for our mental health, our longevity, cardiovascular health, all these things, right? It's like physical exercise is your best bang for your buck for taking care of yourself. It's like you can actually have other toxic habits in your life, and if you're training, it's offsetting a lot of that. And so
that's true.
it's really important to train, but I think that taking training deeper, I think this is a reason why people fall off of training and they aren't able to adhere to a particular program for too long, is because it's devoid of the original relationships that moved us. And so we originally, like, being upright walking mammals, we originally were shaped this way to find food, to find shelter, to protect us and ours. And that's the natural landscape. And so it's like taking a gorilla from its habitat and putting it, or taking a wolf, for instance, out of its habitat, out of its hunting grounds, out of its relationships with its pack and how it navigates the landscape, and putting it in a fabricated environment and just having it running like on a wheel. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the wolf's going to be like, this, like, okay, running feels good, and I'm like, I'm getting some benefits, but like, what am I missing? There's something not quite adding up about this activity. Is there something more? I feel like I'm in a bad dream. And so it's the same thing for humans. It's like we go inside and, like, yeah, it feels good to exert and push and do this and that, but then you leave and you're just like, okay. But like, when your training is in service to helping you move through the landscape efficiently and confidently so that you can engage in those relationships that make us human, because it's the more than human world that makes us human. It is the contrast of the more than human world that gives us our humanity. That's how we find the definition of ourselves. And so by relating with the world, the natural world, and understanding the plants and animals around you and how they all interrelate and how it all changes through the seasons and where your food comes from, um, and how to make things with your hands, like how to cultivate that good feeling, that brings a sense of belonging on the planet. And I think that there's a major, like, epidemic of just lack of purpose and belonging, and it's because we've been sold a lie that we actually have to just uh, we have to aggregate a bunch of money and toys, future trash, I like to call it, and then eventually we're going to be content and be happy. And um, it's just not true. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I could see what you mean by it's like we're being fed a lie. My next question is actually a good follow up to what you were just saying. And I guess to go a bit deeper, like nowadays, a lot of people are dealing with mental health issues. And what do you think the main cause is? Is it these things that you have already mentioned before and more? And how does someone, like, right now, maybe they're living a very toxic lifestyle or they're constantly pushing for the next thing? How can they stop to think in that way and start to like get their mental health back so they can live a like higher quality life?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a super complex subject, and it's definitely a layered thing. But like, when I think about mental health, if there's like fear and there's love and there's like safety and security, or there's like a lack of that, um, I try to think of like what brings a sense of safety, what brings a sense of security, um, and if we've been removed from our habitat is fundamental. So like the absence of nature um, in someone's life is going to breed. We see this in other primates. Like they become sick,
Mm.
and they actually exhibit almost like I haven't watched it yet, and I don't know the name of it, but there's some documentary where they're taking these like chimpanzees, almost like standard American lifestyle to a chimpanzee, and lo and behold, they develop all the same shit that we develop: mental health
Yeah.
and Neolithic diseases. So um, I think that like the nervous system is on fire in the modern world for almost everybody. We're super stressed out because we've been born into a monetary system that we have to fight to survive. We have to basically earn our right to drink water, so it's like that's intrinsically stressful. The family structure is intrinsically stressful. We were never meant to just raise kids in a nuclear family, let alone a single mom or a single dad. All of this stuff happened in a village, and so I think what I like to say is like it's the revillaging in some way, shape, or form that needs to happen for humans to come back to being in balance on this planet, and that's like yeah, like living intimately with people that we trust and know, like we're a social animal. That's a huge important part. But right now it's like we live in high rises. We fear our neighbor.
Yeah.
We're on our phones getting stressed out about all the crazy shit happening in the world. And I mean, talk about a recipe for just feeling insane. And so moving closer to nature, is going to downregulate the nervous system. It's going to bring a sense of belonging on the planet when you start to recognize where you're at and the things around you. Sharing and living closely with people is going to bring a level of intimacy and security, and then training yourself so that you are actually physically capable and feel confident in your body. Learning skills so that you actually feel confident to handle things. Like the shit hits the fan, I know that I'm not going to starve. I know how to hunt. I know how to fish. I have everything I need to do all these things. I can skin an animal. It's like this. It's like I know how to grow food. There's all these different things that give you a sense of like I feel relaxed. I
Yeah.
feel relaxed knowing that I can handle my environment. I can lift heavy objects. Um, I can fight to a decent level if I had to. Um, I know that my health, people are afraid for their health, because we see like the population continues to grow more obese, more diabetic, more mentally ill. And it's like, I know that I don't have that stuff coming for me because I pull all the levers from nutrition and sleep and sunlight, grounding, movement. I do all the things that are most likely putting me on the side of the spectrum that's going to be, I'm going to live a healthy life. And so I don't have to worry about those things. Do I worry at times? For sure. I do still, like anyone else, I'm still exposed. I'm on the internet, so I'm exposed to atrocities throughout the world, um, and bad stuff, that's going on. And so it's tough. It's a tough hand that we were dealt on this planet. But we gotta, I think, in giving ourselves the tools to be able to move our energy, down regulate our nervous system, come back to the present moment, and then definitely cutting out the noise as much as we can. I think people should be like getting off of their phones. Use your phone to learn something, like you want to learn to tie some knots on YouTube, great, do that. Practice your knots, get rid of your phone, bake a loaf
Yeah.
of sourdough, go break it with your friends, go outside and play at the park, go on a fishing trip, like go do stuff, and use the internet when you absolutely have to. I understand that I live out in the bush, and if I don't want to drive all around to coach people, that was the whole reason I got online in the first place. My wife was like, "You should go on and try and do online coaching." I was like, "I don't know." Just 2 years ago, and here we are now. So yeah, I think that people need to double down on real life. And if they do that, they will feel a lot better. They will feel way less crazy. And so you got to get out of the jungle, the concrete jungle, and get into the real jungle, wherever that may be.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense because it's like you're saying, it's almost that people are living through the digital world and not through their own life. And just doing that, you kind of see your life crumbling. You're getting unhealthy. You might be becoming overweight because you're sedentary, and you're seeing everyone else live their life through your screen. and then that just puts you behind while these people, I guess, quote unquote, are getting ahead in your mind. But even then, it's like you're comparing yourself to all these people online, and then you think you're less than, and you don't deserve things. You don't deserve a happy life because you don't haven't achieved what these other people have achieved, right? And then that's
Yeah,
just an endless cycle.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, how weird is the internet getting? I mean, now it's like, what's real, what's not real.
Mm,
The people who are real, a majority of them are on PEDs. They're on
yeah,
steroids. They're on to TRT. They're on peptides. All this and that. Um, and there's this totally like unattainable natural set, like look and level of performance. And then people just have this totally skewed view of their own body and what it's all about. And so I'm trying to do my best to kind of be without polarizing so much, because I hate that level of marketing where people are just like, you just bash around and then to get attention. Like
yeah,
I really try to just be like, this is my practice, this is what works for me. And be another way of seeing things that I think is more balanced and more healthy than the traditional fitness.
yeah.
So
I would agree because like the concept of like what a good physique is nowadays or what is strong is so skewed because of like steroids and social media, and it's to the point where people gain a lot from going on the internet, looking amazing because they're on steroids, not telling you they're on steroids. They make a crap ton of money and then they tell you they're on steroids. And now it's too late to hate the person or whatever because you've invested all this time and money into that individual. And then it's kind of like you're seeing it over and over and over again, just different people, you know?
yeah, yep, rinse and repeat. It's just another generation just comes through. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, and I don't want to hate on them, you know, like I know that they're just doing their best. Like they were just born into the world they were born into. You know,
Yeah.
everybody, and that's where I think we can find real compassion for ourselves and everyone. Really, is that like wherever these people are born, whatever environment their little kid selves are just brought up through is what shapes them into the person that they are. They didn't
Yeah.
choose it, you know, it's just happening. And so like I think it's important to zoom out, and it gives us the ability to actually have real compassion and be like, oh, like you were a little kid at one point and you were just shaped by your environment. And most likely you're very insecure if you're just chasing endless aesthetic physique goals. You know, it's like you're not
Yes.
content with how you look. You're not, and like I know a lot of them are really open about that. You know, a lot of them are just openly, uh, what is it, body dysmorphic, or dysphoric or something. So
Dysmorphia. Yeah.
yeah, and so like I feel for those people, you know? Like I wish they could find peace and contentment and then work on developing other things, because like it's a lot more to cultivating a chiseled body in this world, you know? But it just shows how removed we are from what we've actually been up to for so long on this planet, which is like living close to the land with each other and just like in deep relationship with the natural world and merrymaking and just like being at ease. And so, yeah,
I think you're doing a good job though, because it's like you said, that's why I really wanted to have you on the podcast because what you preach and what you do and how you live is so different from like the everyday things that you see. So I think if there's someone like you that's inspiring people to kind of live this different way, and then there's a bunch of other people that are like you that get inspired and they start posting content and showing their lifestyle, I think we'll be headed in a better direction because of that. You know what I mean? Because right now it's like you're saying there's so much noise of this one way of life that we almost kind of need this right now.
yeah, I keep telling myself that because I have a hard time being on the internet, but I get a lot of positive feedback, a lot of negative too. A lot of people love to talk shit too, but um, I've gotten better at just letting that wash over me. But yeah, I know. It's like my friend Seth Hughes says. It's like this is where the town square is right now
Mm,
for our
yeah,
species. Like, this is where the conversations are happening. This is where the influence is. This is where the attention is. And so, as much as I don't want to be on the internet, I feel somewhat of an obligation now, to just being here and being a voice for, um, just positive change for our species. And so, and I don't claim to have all the answers. I just am doing my best. I was not born into this lifestyle. I wasn't raised this way. Um, my grandmother was an orphan. I don't have any real intact tradition. I don't have any intact tradition, and so I'm an orphan, just like so many people, cultural orphan. And so I'm just doing my best. I'll always be honest about that. I have found a deep sense of fulfillment and peace in my life, and I feel very I feel very good, And so like I just want to share that with people, and if it works, that's great. Uh, uh, but I don't think that I know there's more ways to do it than just the way that I'm doing it. But, yeah.
For sure. So you mentioned how your wife kind of brought up the whole social media thing. Before you had got started, did you have like expectations that you would have an account and be inspiring as many people as you have so far?
No, I mean, I had a lot of resistance to doing it because I hadn't been on social media. Um, I lived out in Colorado. I was on retreat. I wasn't on social media. Um, and this is 15 years ago, and then came out of retreat, 6 years later, and was not on social media. I was still living super remote, off grid. And I lived there for another 7 years or so, and then I moved out to Oregon, and then I met my wife 4 years ago. I might be getting some of these years mixed up, but I met her 4 or 5 years ago or something, and I would make fun of her for being on Instagram. She like be on Instagram, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like just wasting your time on Instagram. And she's like, oh yeah, you're right, da da da. And like, so I just be like, whatever. She had Instagram, I didn't, and she was doing her thing. Um, and then eventually she was, and I'm like, I moved here from Colorado and was living out of my truck, and I was just like, starting a new life and like trying to get horse clients. So I was trying to get horses to trim and get people to train, and it was happening slowly. But like I live out in the bush, so I'd have to drive all the way to town and all the way back. And I'm driving and there's no gym out here. There's only a YMCA, so I can't train people at a gym. So I'm training people at parks or at their house. I'm driving all around. It's just like not what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You should just like maybe get online. People coach online." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, how do you even coach? Like, how would I even do that? Like, I had a little bit of online coaching at one point over the past 15 years, but like everything else I did was in person. Like I would go to a workshop or go to a thing and like get a deep dive immersion into some movement modality. And so
It was
I
like
just
completely foreign to you.
it was really foreign. Yeah, like how to make videos. Like I remember the first couple months, I'm just kind of just being like, how do I even operate this app? Like what making videos, this and that. And um, I just did it. And yeah, shout out to Anthony. My friend Anthony, he he inspired me to just commit to posting no matter what, even if I felt like it was shitty or if I didn't feel inspired that day. And I'd honestly only been on the internet for a number of months, and then it was like on day 9 of me committing to do that, I posted some. I didn't. I was actually the day where I said I was like, I don't want to do it today. I don't feel like I'm going to do it. And then my wife was like, "You committed, just go do it. Go do it. Go talk about what you're going through right now." I was like, "All right." So I went and I hit the heavy bag for a little bit, and I made this caption about how I'd been neglecting myself and my own self care, and I was taking it out on my family, and just some of the hardships of being a brand new dad and all these things. And yeah, we woke up. I posted that little clip. It was like an 8-second clip of me hitting the heavy bag and this caption, and and then we woke up in the morning, and she was like, "You have like 8,000 people following." Like it was literally like overnight. There was
Damn.
this storm, and then half the people were telling me I sucked at boxing. Half the people were saying I was a fine boxer. Other people were saying you missed the whole point, the caption, and they're all arguing with each other, and that's how all these things go viral.
Yeah.
and be halfway good at something and get people to argue about it is basically my approach.
That's the method.
Yeah, don't be that good, but give it your all. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and then it was literally just like then it just went off from there. That was 2 years ago, and here we are. And over that whole time, I've tried to do my best to find a way to really support people in a way that meets everybody where they're at, whether they got money or they don't have money. And so yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Quite a journey, yeah. Do you almost feel like it's only the beginning since you've only been doing it for 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like my work and how I want to leverage my presence on social media, like that's all changing. Like I feel less interested in online coaching. I feel much more interested in in-person related. Like I want to get people on the ground doing practice, learning skills integrated into the landscape, cooking an animal on an open fire, like storytelling, music, like real village style retreats is my real goal. So that's what I'm working on now. Still coaching people online. I still have an online membership that's only $9, and it's got my whole training framework and all sorts of good stuff in there. So it's definitely the beginning. It's already brought me into relationship with so many cool people. And I think that's a really cool aspect about it. There's going to be cool collaborations, and stuff like this. So it's the beginning. It's always the beginning of something, I think it's going to continue to transform. Um, and my goal, what I have to do is create enough space between me and the internet so that I can actually live my life and cultivate my practice, because that's what I bring to this whole situation. And so
Yeah.
I've gone through waves of like my practice suffering and like me just being on a computer taking calls and just being like, this is not what I want to do. Um, and so right now I've struck a pretty good balance. My practice is strong. I'm not on the internet that much. I'm moving in the directions I want to provide value in this world in a way that inspires me. Um, so yeah, it's the beginning.
Amazing. My next question for you is, how has being a father shaped you into the man you are today?
I mean, there's no greater thing that I'll ever do in this world than being a father. It is the greatest work I'll do in this world. I think that it's an indescribable thing to see. It's like your heart has been pulled out of your body and it is like running around in front of you,
Mm,
and you're just watching it grow, and you're watching it feel pain, and you're watching them like just learn, and the curiosity and the openness, the tenderness, like the moments of bravery and courage and their excitement in what they do. Like it's just there's nothing that I've done, and I've done some cool stuff that compares to it. And um, yeah, everything changes once you have kids. Everything changes. Your priorities. How for me, like doubling down on myself so that that I'm a good example for them to mirror, and to have the skills and the things that I didn't get as a kid that I want to teach them.
mm.
I want them to come up. I want to double down, and I want them to come out even more. I want us to, like, generation after generation, just be more and more integrated into being a human on this planet. And so sometimes it feels a little overwhelming to me in the light of, I have these very strong ideals. Obviously, like, you can tell I'm a very idealistic guy. Um, and like I'm learning all this stuff on my own. Now, over years of just saying like, oh, I want to learn traditional archery. I want to learn to hunt in the backcountry. Whatever the thing was, it's like, doing that activity, even if I didn't know how in the beginning, has brought me into circles of people that are more skilled than me, that have been raised in a certain way. And so now I have a very large network of friends and community that inspire the heck out of me, and I continue to learn and learn and learn and learn. Um, but yeah, sometimes I think, like, just like any other father, like, am I doing a good enough job? Like,
Yeah.
am I going to leave my kid prepared enough? Am I imprinting them in a positive way? Am I imprinting them in a negative way? Um, and so I come up against those things, but I know that I have the heart and the intentions to continue moving in a good way. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's changed me. It's just I grew up in a different way once I had kids. Um, and there's nothing to really compare it. I just, if, for someone who doesn't have kids, and I have friends who are committed to not having kids, that's cool. I totally respect um, anyone's choice to have or to not have kids. It's obviously deeply, deeply personal. But I could say that, like, my my practice has never been on the level it is having kids. Having kids to um, like, they're mirroring your own stuff. It is the deepest dive into your own shortcomings and patterns and triggers and all this stuff. Like, me and my wife make this, we have this saying, it's like self-realization through child rear. It is practice. Like, it is the deepest form of relationship and self-reflection that happens from being a parent. Like, there's this idea that you sacrifice your time and your freedom when you have kids. But to me, like, you actually get to actualize yourself on a level that you weren't going to be able to do unless you had kids. And so, to me, there is a level of development and maturity that you cannot achieve unless you have kids. And so, that being said, it's, again, I just want to say I respect everybody, whether they have kids or not. But for me, it has been the most fruitful and developmentally profound opportunity is having kids. And you've just never loved like it in your whole life. You didn't know that you could feel so deeply in your life. Like, it's just so profound. It's devastating to the heart in the best way. And it's just like, it goes to show that it's like, we're here to create, like, we're here to live and to create. And, and so I hope our world continues to move in a direction that allows more people to have kids in a good way. And yeah, I think if somebody is going to have kids, I do recommend trying to live in a community. It makes it a lot easier to have the support of other kids and other families that you have shared values with. Uh, that's a very important part of our lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like maybe if you're just focused on just you, your partner, and your kid, it's like they're kind of isolated from
Yeah,
everyone else, right?
and it's hard because it's we were never meant to bear the load of bringing home the bacon. Um, you know, there's so many aspects to a well-rounded um, home front homestead, and, like, the way that the world is now, it's like two parents have to work full-time jobs to afford basic living standards, and they don't even get to spend time with their kid. Then their kid goes to a school or a daycare, and it's just like everybody's living their little compartmentalized world to try and make it all work. And, like, bless their hearts, they're doing their best. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's I don't think it's the original design. I think normally historically we've been in collectives of people, and we share the resources, we share the burden of life and needing to make hay and eat meat and get meat and all these things, and, like, hold babies. It's like one person holding a baby all day long is insane. Like, people think they're strong. It's like, hold a baby for like 9 hours in the day, 20 to 30 pound baby, nine
I
hours.
never really thought about that. You're right.
It's gnarly, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that seems pretty rough.
it's rugged. And so, like, we need grandmas and grandpas and uncles and aunties around to help with the various things that keep a homestead moving in a good way. And so, yeah, we've come a long way from how we've lived. And I know from experience that the more that we move toward that, the easier things get, the more things make sense. Yeah.
100%. I agree with that fully. I only have two questions for you left, Tim. So this one is, I guess, to someone that might be listening to the podcast, this might help them out. And is, what advice would you give your younger self? Like, let's say 10, 15 years ago, that maybe you know now that you wish you would have known of sooner.
Learn to shut your mouth. I would try and teach myself to learn to shut my mouth and listen.
So just
uh,
do more listening, less talking.
um, I would also say that, like, go find respectable old people and learn to listen to them. Um, yeah, I would have encouraged myself to also just to get into um, ancestral skills, primitive skills, like learning how to make things with your hands, friction fire, tanning hides. These things bring me so much joy and such a deep sense of belonging, um, that, like, you know, it's just like getting into that in my later years. It's like I wish I was doing that when I was younger. And I think that the people that are in those groups, that's where you could actually find the old people who have a real wisdom, who've been living it for a long time. And then if you've taught yourself to shut your mouth, you can go and be an open canvas that maybe that wisdom can grace. And so I think learning to be quiet, learning to listen, finding elders to listen to, and getting your hands moving and making like they were designed to do, will check so many boxes off. You'll be moving towards nature. You'll be moving towards your food, towards the relationships that shaped how your body moves and how you belong on this planet. And you'll meet really good friends, and you'll have community. And those are the type of people that do want to share resources and live close to the land. And so you'll have it all made. So let's say it again. So it's like, find the skills shares, go to the skills camps, um, be quiet, find the old people, and you'll be good.
Perfect breakdown. No, 100%. It's crazy because, like you mentioned it before, like the lack of community. In a big city, there's condos, there's houses that are right next to each other, super close, and you'll see that person every single day, and you won't have a conversation with them. You won't even know their name, and it's crazy that we actually live like that. Like, you've given me a lot of perspective from this conversation because those are things I didn't really think about, but it's true.
Yeah, you got to go knock on all your neighbors' doors and drop off a little homemade sourdough. You got to learn to make sourdough bread, and then you'll go and give them a little sourdough bread.
Yeah, maybe
I got
that's what
this
I'm missing.
roadkill deer. Get the roadkill deer.
Get the roadkill deer, try to skin it, definitely fail because it'll be the first time.
Oh, dude, I've ruined so many hides. But that's the beauty. You just try, you know.
That's actually something I want to get into, is going to hunt, because I never been hunting, but I also don't know any person that hunts, and I don't think I would want to go by myself because I don't know. Like, do you think that's something you could learn like off YouTube, or do you think, like you said, to go with someone that has experienced that?
I mean, there are some incredible online resources now for learning to hunt. Like, for instance, if you were interested in learning to hunt elk, Elk 101, Corey, Elk 101, and all the other guys that help with that operation. Like, I learned so much about elk hunting through that when I first started to get into it. And I mean, I got my first bull elk because of that course.
I
And
see.
so there's so much good information on hunting. Yeah, I mean, the Meat Eater podcast, Stephen Ranella, all those guys at First Light, Clay Hayes. Um, there's so many amazing backcountry hunters out there doing it in a good way, um, that have so much information for free. Like, honestly, it's the Elk 101 is not free, but it's very affordable, and for the education, it's really worth it. So you can do it, but there's no better replacement for actual dirt time. Like,
Yeah,
learn
exactly.
patterning animals and being in the landscape, because you can have the understanding of various things, but like everything changes when you got a 30 to 40 pound pack on, and you're
Yeah.
8 miles in the back country, and you hear an elk in the other drainage, and you got to make a move. It's like, it's so fun. Um, but yeah, like finding a mentor is great. I've had a mentor in person, a good friend of mine, Mike D, who I learned a lot from, and so yeah, just do it all. It's like just give it your best effort. It's like get your online resources, get your wheels turning on what to do, start getting your gear. You can go on a guided hunt too. There's guides that do that for a
That's
living,
true.
and so
Yeah,
you could pay someone and go on an elk hunt. I think it's worth it. And then you just start to branch out into your own thing, over time, and you'll fail 95% of the time, and then hopefully that 5% you're bringing an animal home, and it's just the greatest adventures, man. It's the greatest adventures.
100%. So, Tim, for my last question, I ask this question to every single guest that I have on, and that is, Tim, how do you want to be remembered?
Um, as honest, I want to be remembered as honest. Simply as that.
Simply as that,
I don't want
honest.
to be remembered for any particular feat or thing. I don't have any interest in legacy. I think it's a trap. At least for me, it is. Um, I want to be remembered as someone who just told the truth, because I think that that's a really radical thing in today's world. There's so much dishonesty, um, and I just want to be authentic. I want to be my natural self, and I want to. Yeah, if I can be just remembered as just being a really authentic, honest person, um, I would feel good about that.
Amazing. Well said. Well, thank you, Tim, for being on the podcast. Is there anything you want to shout out or any final comments?
No, I mean anybody who is interested in what we're talking about, they can find me at Move Like Human, and like I mentioned earlier, I've got a membership that's very affordable that gives my whole training framework and of a holistic movement practice, like we're talking about the soft style, the hard style, the nervous system stuff. And yeah, and I work with people one on one, and then yeah, keep an ear to the wind for the various retreats I'll be putting out, where you can come and learn to do some of these things we're talking about, like hides and friction fire and eat over the fire in a community and marry, make, and have a good time reconnecting. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, amazing. Well, to everyone listening, this has been the Insightful Podcast with Tim. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Spotify. And Tim, if you could stay for a couple minutes after the pod is done recording, that'd be great. But to everyone listening, thank you for making it this far, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Brush a coal to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to